Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief here in Abbotsford after the threats on Abbotsford residents, but we're going to remove the Abbotsford APD that was Henry's muscle, threatening residents for him to own the city. Thanks to Henry's son and the Mission RCMP, I went to the world stage to show what was taking place with my MP at Fast, Mike DeYoung, and Henry Braun. So I'm down at Barrowtown where I grew up as a young kid, and I want to show you. There was $76 million given to help the flood victims and farmers. There's no $76 million spent on them generators or a few walls here in Abbotsford. I'm begging on the Prime Minister Carney not to give a dime into Abbotsford, and let me tell you why. It's got to go to flood victims. Archway Community Services Rob San Diego raised money in the name of flood victims. And it's wrong to raise that money and keep it. It was never allocated to help the farmers. Rob San Diego was run by Patricia Dreesen, the city councillor, is the director, kept that money, naming under a non-profit to raise that money. This was an establishment set up through the back doors. There was more emphasized with Ross Siemens and council that Henry controlled to help his partners, Ron Funk of Diverse, and use city funds to help Diverse change zonings, the Cooper's Farm and everything. When I saw that, Darren Brown opened the door. I knew I had to go to the public. Henry had the Abbotsford News, Vicky Hopes. He controlled the elections. He was paying city officials to block people, but he had the Abbotsford Task Force threatening people, and I saw that through Council Mogoyle and everything. We need a big changing of the guards, but we gotta go public with all forensic audits. So $76 million here was allocated to these pumps. Now, the city's saying that we need a secondary pump. How much money did they spend on the dikes with Jake's Contracting when you knew you needed a secondary pump? When they failed all their city duties of cleaning and dredging and everything. This was a scam. Rocks hauled on Gladys Avenue that could have been used to protect farmers and everything on city's dollars. This took engineer and everybody, but this city was being run by one mob leader, and his name was Henry Braun. Unless you bent over for Henry Braun, he threatened you, he used the cops on you, he blocked the election and everything. I want to say we owe the RCMP a mission, a tremendous thanks. So I want to show you this as I turn around. I want you to look at this. During the flood, these rocks, this gravel was hauled in by Jake's Contracting. All this, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles to emphasize that they were protecting the sandbags. You didn't do that. You didn't need to do that. The brains and the wisdom of old George Ferguson, you would have dredged up the old clay, put it behind, but you didn't need to protect this. This should have went to the Sumas border crossing, or it should have went in the low lines to help the Nooksack get here to the pumping station. Wasn't done. So the question now Abbotsford residents need to know is all this dike gravel that was hauled in, did Henry phone Ross and say, listen Ross, there's $76 million, we've only spent a couple of million on the pumping stations, so you can hose out another $7-8 million, justify and bring Jake's Contracting and load all the excavators and everything and rip more money out of the coffers. This is why you didn't see loudmouth Dave Lowens, you didn't see Dave Sadu, you didn't see none of the city councillors running around Ross when David Eby came here. I'm calling on Carney to block all money into Abbotsford until we get forensic audits and we get people that are qualified in here to do this infrastructure. But I'm also going to allow you to hear this. Bruce Banman allocated, when he was leaving and Henry wanted that city, them jobs with Ron Funk, them jobs with Big Ron Funk and my friends to fix these pumps and drain these ditches because the floods were coming and we knew it, the Nooksack. We'll see Vicky Hope's crying this week. David Eby's going to talk to Carney, and we'll see Brad Viss. Mr. Speaker, give the money. So let me give you another kick in your bloody mouth, Brad Viss. Henry tried to end my life. He threatened residents, he lifted job sites, he had his son in front of him, he had council in his house, but he used the Abbotsford APD to threaten. and rigged elections, and that's uncalled for, and it calls for everybody to come forward. There's $600 million in the city coffers. Between the Abbotsford City and the provincial government, we could have built these pumps and put them in. So why the hell is the city's coward, Ross Siemens, begging down on his hands for Henry for this infrastructure money? Henry has them gravel pits, and it's worth trillions and trillions of dollars to build that Highway 1. And everybody knows it, thanks to Darren Braun. So I'm calling on the federal government, Carney, to stop all money in here unless it goes directly into my farmers' hands and we get a proper mediator in here. I would tell you, if that money is coming in, to put it in Bruce Bam in the MLA's hands, and he'll make sure it's properly spent and every dollar's accounted for, but not into the city till we get forensic audits. And that's what we need to do. And we need to go under them forensic audits because people's lives were getting threatened. But this was an ATM machine out of the Abbotsford City, and nobody was helping our farmers. So I'm live in Barreltown. So again, Ross, I would tell you and your cowardly council to come with the bill of how much money them illegal rocks cost, and you need to justify it. There was no engineers, there was no studies, there was nothing done. Nobody dumps gravel behind sandbags that are already 10 feet higher than the whole Fraser Valley. I'm live, Barreltown Waterworks.